All right. So I guess now you understand what the plan was.
Absolutely. At Colts Law, we talk Indianapolis Colts football.
We're going to stick to what we know, fundamentals and technique, 1% better every day.
What's going on, Colts Nation? I'm Lawrence Owen, back again with my boy Loyalist, and I know we haven't been doing a lot of live streams, and that's my fault. We'll get into that a lot more here pretty soon. We've got a lot of content to get through. Started my highlight film rooms with Rodney McLeod. It really hasn't gotten much traction, so if you're interested in looking at some of the best plays that Rodney McLeod had over this past season, make sure you go check that out. There will be more coming out. I know Loyalist was like, you started out with Rodney. It's going to get better. And yeah, it's going to get better. Guys, thanks so much for joining in here. Please smash that like button and hit subscribe if you're not subscribed. And I'll tell you something else. Dude, this 2022 season, obviously it was a surprise and a disappointment all at the same time. We were surprised that we only got the amount of wins we got, how the season turned out. And it was an utter disappointment in how, not just how the season ended, but just how it progressed from day one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And before we get into the negative, I would like to give a shout out to Colts Caveman. It's his birthday today. At Rick Stevens on Twitter. Happy birthday, guys! If you don't follow him, check him out. He's like one of the best Colts fans. I mean, he's like us, we don't try to dictate your fandomhood, but we just sit there and acknowledge that, hey, you got a point. This is my point, and let's talk it out. I love that, man. So happy birthday, Rick.
Yep. That's cool. I didn't notice that. I've been busy today and didn't even notice it was Rick. So happy birthday, Rick. All right. So my thought process on this was we're going to go with coaching, players, that kind of stuff. When I say surprise, I mean like positive surprise, right?
Yeah.
I don't know how many of those we're going to get through with this today. And then obviously disappointment speaks for itself. Who did not play up to expectations? Let us know in the comments in the live chat. Hey, who did you think performed above expectations, and who do you think utterly failed to meet the expectations of this year? And first and foremost, it's kind of obvious, right? Matt Ryan.
Oh, yeah.
Disappointment.
Yeah, it was a surprise and a disappointment because you guys know I was very on board with, Matt Ryan and his leadership, and that's what this team needed, and I get it. He was, but yeah, no way did I expect the poor performance, the turnover machine that was, this year's version of Matt Ryan. But I mean, I don't even know where to begin with it. Do you talk about the fumbles? Do you talk about the interceptions? It's just the list of disappointments for that position as a whole, just the quarterback room as a whole. There's one bright light that we'll talk about on the surprise part, but Matt Ryan, our number one, number two going into the season did not fall in that category. Let's just put it that way.
No, the only positive you could say on that was at least Nick Foles wasn't starting week one. Because that would have been horrific. Not just a disappointment. It would have been horrific. We wouldn't know. We would have been in the negatives in our win column. I think, he's that bad. At least from what we saw this year, the two games that he started, it was terrible. Now, obviously, you could come up with excuses for anybody and everyone on why their play was better or why their play was worse. Matt Ryan, obviously, there are excuses for him as well. However, when, let's say, the offensive line started playing well, we started running the football well, his play did not necessarily increase either, and it should have. So that's why I think he tops that list of disappointments for me this season.
Absolutely. Because to your point, we saw the last week or so under Reich and then the whole 8 games of Saturday, things were not perfect, but things were stabilizing on that offensive line. And the first half of the season, it was like, look, it didn't matter if you had, Matt Ryan. It didn't matter if you had Trevor Lawrence or John. the play from the quarterback position was going to be hard to be good and productive. Appreciate you all in here. But to your point, once things stabilized and once things started being a little more productive, we started getting better protection from Ryman, and we got better protection from, at the right guard spot, Fries and stuff. It was like, even then, the quarterback play just kept trending downwards. And it was like, okay, yeah, now what's the excuse or what's the reason? And to your point, that was the most disheartening. And quite honestly, that's what sank this season as a whole, was the offensive line and just the play on the offensive side of things for the most part.
Let's flip it. All right, we talked about a disappointment thing. Let's talk about a positive surprise, something that was like, wow, well, this is going better than expected. This player or coach is doing better than expected. Who, since I brought up Matt Ryan, I'm going to give you the first positive outlook on this season.
Well, like I said earlier, there was really only one positive for me from this quarterback room as a whole to take, and that was Sam Ehlinger. Now, this is not me saying, hey, he's a starting quarterback or any of that stuff. But what we saw from year 1 to year 2 this year was a massive improvement. I mean, and I get it. You expect an improvement through that time cycle. But the thing was the arm strength, the technique, the just understanding of what to do and when to do it. I was very impressed with what we saw from Sam. And he came in at some really, really rough times. It's like, when all else fails, we just threw Sam in there. At least he could run, the ball and stuff. So shout out to, to Sam. He really hung tough in there all year. And I mean, to me, he was never that starting quarterback option. I just hope that he could be a solid backup option. And I mean, I don't know about you guys, but me personally, I feel like he's proven that as long as he continues to progress, that is what he can be. You know what I mean? And maybe even be a fringe starter, just not on the Colts, not with what we got coming up in the draft.
I will agree that, yes, Sam Ehlinger was a positive, and, you say credit to him. Absolutely credit to him for what he did in the offseason, okay? For him to be able to improve as much as he did, not only in, how he was, the technique on his throwing to increase his throwing power, get his accuracy up, make better decisions, be able to push the ball downfield, not make the turnover mistakes that he was making in training camp and preseason last year. He made huge strides. Again, now, as of right now, I don't see Sam as a starting quarterback in the NFL, but if somehow, some way, magically, he's able to make the improvements that he made from his rookie to his second year, from a second to his third, there's a good possibility he could be fighting for a starting position in the NFL someday. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying that it's going to happen. I'm just saying the fruits are out there. We saw something like that with Josh Allen. We saw something like that with a Mr. Jalen Hurts, right? We've seen that. Now, granted, their ceiling starting out was higher, than what his was, but still, get a little bit better and, get better year by year. He could have a long NFL career. Maybe not as a starter, but I mean, there's a lot of quarterbacks out there that have really long careers as backups in the NFL because they're just that good at doing that.
Yeah. Now let's get to a negative that this one's hard for me to say. You guys know how much of a fan I am of this guy, but another, disappointment for me, and it was Quenton Nelson. Okay. The offensive line as a whole, but Quenton Nelson for me personally was the one where I was just like, whoa. This was not what we've come accustomed to. Now, that's not saying that Quenton Nelson was the worst offensive lineman, even on this team, let alone, in the NFL or anything. But he just did not perform to the level and the standard that he had set. And he's even said as much, and that we have come to expect. And the thing is that to me was like, this guy's young. He's a beast. You look at the path he was on up till this last year, and it was like, there was no speed bumps. So now this year is Quenton Nelson's speed bump year. You know what I mean? He gets, and we know that, even the best of players, they have their down years and stuff. But if Quenton can sit there and get back on track and get on that trajectory and stuff that he has been, I think that this offensive line is going to be able, and I know I said this all year, this offensive line has a chance to really straighten things up much quicker, because you look at the other O-line and stuff, there was equal disappointments. But for me, Quenton Nelson being the all-pro, Pro Bowl player year in, year out. I mean, I get it. He got the Pro Bowl, but let's be honest. If your name's in the rotation, then that automatically gives you a big advantage for the Pro Bowl. But, like I said, I was just really disappointed with what we got from Quenton Nelson, especially.
Was I disappointed in Quenton Nelson this year? Yes. I was not overly surprised at the disappointment because every good, great player has a down season, and it's not like I don't think he went to below average play this year by any means, but when you go from top 1 or 2 player at your position to good, that it's noticeable. It's noticeable, right?
Mm-hmm.
By far, in my opinion, the biggest disappointment on this offensive line, it was not, believe it or not, Pryor, because we didn't know anything about Pryor. I didn't think Pryor was going to be good in the first place. Pinter. Danny Pinter at right guard was the biggest disappointment for me because his play at right guard was atrocious. It was absolutely, and it wasn't just him. Granted, it was a swinging door at right guard, even after Pinter. But Pinter was supposed to come in and fill that spot left by, Mark Glowinski. And most of us thought he could hold that fort down. He played pretty good as a backup center, a little bit, as a right guard last year. But as a right guard this year, he was just absolutely terrible.
Wasn't this his first snaps at right guard, though?
Yeah. But okay. I mean, he played center, and
right. And my point to that is at least with Matt Pryor last year, we saw a little bit of left tackle. And I, to your point, I didn't expect either of these guys to be world beaters, but Chris Ballard said it real well. You thought that with your veteran leadership, I mean, we talked about Quenton Nelson. I mean, he's played above average, but he didn't play to his contract. Getting that big contract this year. But you look at Ryan Kelly and Braden Smith. I mean, I see in here, Basil says that, Quenton Nelson was still our best lineman. You look at the numbers and stuff, I argue that Braden Smith over the season was our best lineman. But the thing is you looked at what you got for me, Ryan Kelly at that center spot. I just really thought that they could absorb, some of these other holes and stuff. And clearly Ballard and a lot of us were wrong on that. And it proved to be a big thing. And that's where I'm hoping this year that we find, even though I love what Ryman has done, especially the latter half of the season this year, I want competition for Ryman. I want competition for Fries. Yes, these guys are stepping up, but I just want something to push these guys and get these guys going.
Absolutely. Absolutely. What's up, Brayton Nichols? Shout out to Frank Reich and good luck with the Panthers.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to bring this up later, but I might as well bring it up now. This tells you right now that people don't know jack about the NFL, even insiders, because yesterday it was being reported that Frank Reich was for sure going to be the head coach of the Arizona Cardinals, and then today he's hired as the Carolina Panthers head coach. Maybe the Panthers just jumped. It's like, no, we can't have that. But absolutely, good luck to Frank Reich. I think that he, is a very good coach. He's a very good offensive mind. It just didn't work here in Indy this past year. The circumstances just wasn't there for him.
Yeah, it's such a perfect fit. I mean, his family, he's from that North Carolina region. I mean, I was reading somewhere, which I wasn't aware, but Frank Reich was actually the first quarterback to throw a pass for the Panthers organization, which I totally spaced it or didn't know it at any point in time, but I was like, that's pretty cool. But to your point, my only thing is now, Frank, I understand you don't owe us anything, but can you wait until we figure out who our head coach is before you go and start picking Gus Bradley and picking some of these guys away from us? All right, just let us sort out. Let's get us through this extensive interview process so we still have a shot. Like if you get Raheem Morrison and he wants to keep Gus, So it's very interesting to see how that shakes out now over the next couple weeks.
So you just got done talking about a disappointment. I want to go to a big surprise, and it is no surprise that this name is going to come out of my mouth. But let's face it, when he was picked up as a free agent last offseason, most of us was thinking, okay, depth at the safety position, depth. No, this dude was not only a starter, but was one of the studs on our defense. Rodney McLeod, by far, in my opinion, was one of the biggest surprises on the defensive side, well outperforming the $1.7 million contract and the expectations that Colts fans and the entire Colts nation had for him this year.
Yeah, especially, I mean, let's look at the role that he played for this Colts. He came in week 2 or week 3, I can't remember which one, but week 2, and then week 3 he was starting rotation for the rest of the season, and he really helped bring this secondary together. You know what I mean? He really helped the communication cleanup. I mean, let's not forget that at the same time that this was happening, there was another surprise, of the good kind that was happening at, which we'll get into later. But like I said, Rodney came in and he was playing that in the box safety that, I wasn't aware that he had never played that his entire career. I mean, you think, but he came in and the team improved. There was no skipping a beat. There was no, confusion or anything. He came in like the OG that he is and just played lights out. I mean, all year long. I mean, even whenever you sat there and you seen players that were not making the same plays that they were throughout the bulk of the season there at the last couple of games, Rodney was still throwing his body in there. Rodney was still making plays left and right. I mean, I was so happy to see him get that pick 6 because at the end of the season against the Texans, because, with you and Believe in Colts, we got to hear how important this was. He's been itching for it for weeks and weeks, So to sit there and not only get the interception, but close it off with a touchdown was fantastic. Happy for him.
Absolutely. Basil, what's up, guy? The other Rodney was a bigger surprise for me. And I'll tell you what, we were going to get to him later, but I might as well jump into it now. This safety position we had this past year was maybe our deepest group. Yeah. I mean, my goodness, when Nick Cross, who was, expected to be a fantastic player, was relegated to the bench and, healthy scratch most of the season, that's got to say a lot. I mean, Rodney Thomas was out there getting interceptions left and right while Rodney McLeod was in the box doing his thing. Rodney Thomas was in the back end doing his. Now, as a rookie, absolutely, he still made rookie mistakes occasionally, but you saw the big playability week in and week out from this young man.
Yeah, and I just want to ball this together, because I know it's hard to mention these other guys, but Chris Ballard. First off, shout out to Chris Ballard, because you look at we're used to Chris Ballard doing good in the 2nd, the 3rd, the 4th round and stuff. But to your point, you got Rodney Thomas, who was a 7th round pick. We had Dallas Flowers, who came out and, I mean, just was an absolute stud in special teams. And then you look at JoJo Doman, who also really stepped up big for this. So my point is,
DFAs. Yep.
Yeah, you look at deeper in the draft and stuff, Chris Ballard really found himself some gems and some, I was, as you remember, I was pretty high on Rodney Thomas just because of his background and his diversity. But guys, when he got on that field, I mean, at first there was plays where it's like, oh no, he's beat. And then you realized how much speed he had, how much game speed he had, and how well he was able to recover and get himself in good position. And then you just continuously seeing that development and stuff. So like I said, shout out to Dallas Flowers, Rodney Thomas, late round guys, undrafted free agent, JoJo Doman. I mean, these were guys that, you expect them to come in and maybe take it, but these guys made the 53 for the majority of the season, and then, like you said, the safety room as a whole, Nick Cross, yes, there was a lot of hype, but he was a 21-year-old rookie. He was not just a rookie, but he was a young rookie. So this is not me saying that, oh, there's no hope for Nick Cross. No, I think Nick Cross can be everything that they think he can be. The thing was it was just, honestly, he was one of those guys, even Ballard said, if he was in the draft the following year, if he would have waited until this draft coming up, then he would have gotten higher. But the thing is, Colts took a flyer on him. And now with Thomas, with, the Isaiah Rodgers Sr. So this secondary's got some pieces in it that, you can sit there and say, I can see these guys being, one or two of them at least being, re-signed and stuff whenever their contracts are up in the upcoming years.
So let's go to a disappointment since we had back-to-back safety surprises. I'm going to go to a disappointment. We're going to go right along the tight end position. All right. Look, I understand, and we talked about this a lot. There are, reasons, excuses for, the lower gameplay and stuff like that. But I'm sorry, Mo Alley Cox, he got this big contract, and he did not live up to the expectations of that contract. And being the tight end one for this team, we were expecting a much more. Now, was there a lot of bad throws? Was there a lot of situations where he had to be put in for the run game because, the offensive line was at? Absolutely, I get that. But still, when his number was called, he failed to produce at the level he needed to produce at the expected level that he needed to produce at.
Oh, absolutely. And I'll be honest, guys, I was not expecting Mo Alley to come in and replace Jack Doyle. That was not the expectations. But the thing was you still expected him to come in and be a people mover, which he'd proven to be. He had the nickname Mo Alley Blocks. He didn't just get that, just randomly, and his blocking really fell off this year, if you ask me. There were some games where he cleaned it up, but as a whole, if you're looking at the big picture, it wasn't to the level. And to your point, to that $6 million or $6.5 million contract that he got, arguably, if you look at what you got from Colin Granson and Jelani Woods, did these guys supplant Mo Alley Cox as that starting tight end? Which I get it. Jelani Woods didn't get near the snaps that Mo Alley did. Yes, both of these guys are improving at their blocking, but they still need to get better. But at least when they were outrunning routes and stuff, they weren't just vanishing. I mean, Mo Alley Cox, whether it was because of poor quarterback play or the offensive line, there just wasn't any game other than one that I can think of where Mo Alley Cox was effective in the pass game. So if he's not blocking, up to expectations, and he's not getting utilized in the passing game, to me, that just screams a disappointment. You know what I mean? And like I said, this is not me wanting him to be, of course I wanted him to be like Jack Doyle, but it wasn't the expectations.
Well, I mean, in my opinion, right now, I think it's 100% that Kylan Granson supplanted Mo Alley Cox as tight end one. Mm-hmm. I think he by far was the better blocker and by a mile was a better receiving tight end. Kylan Granson was the best receiving tight end we had on our team. He was always open, always seemed to catch the football and made plays with the ball in his hand, whether he had open space or not, So I think he absolutely supplanted it. Now, Jelani, we'll see what happens with him. He had a fairly expected rookie season, I think.
He just didn't get used. He just didn't get the snaps. And I get it, he's a rookie, but man, what was that game where he had 2 touchdowns? And I mean, he just was a world beater early in the season. You thought, oh, okay, I can see how this fits with the team. Let's see more of it. And then as we have lately, things that start to work and you're looking for it in the following weeks and it's just not there. And that's so frustrating.
I know. I hear you. All right, guys, we're about 25 minutes in. Please smash that like button and hit subscribe if you're not subscribed. Tag that notification bell so that you are notified when we upload a video or go live. And don't forget to check out some of our other links here in the description of this video. This video is sponsored by Newsbreak. Newsbreak is an app used over 1.5 billion times a month by people just like you to get local news via articles or videos by those who are focused on that specific area. People like myself. Just use the link in the description of this video to download it. Then search a city, state, or someone specific, like myself, Colts Law. Then make sure to follow them so you'll get all the news fresh as it comes out. All right. So I see there's a lot of people in here talking. I appreciate each and every one of you. I honestly, play calls. That was my biggest issue. No matter who it was that was calling them, especially early in the season, whether it was Frank Reich making the play calls, whether it was the scripted play calls, either way, from our OC at the time. Either way, the person making the play calls in the first half of the season was bad. The reason I say that is they did not adjust to what our team was doing bad and what our team was doing good. You know what I mean? That's the problem.
Yeah.
When you were having issues with pass blocking, which means the quarterback is under pressure a lot. They were blitzing a ton earlier this year, and they weren't utilizing quick out tight ends. They were trying to keep them inside instead. They weren't utilizing the running back screens rather than trying the wide receiver screens, which they did a lot of. But a lot of the running back screen, I would have loved to have seen Hines in a screen or Taylor in a screen once in a while. Wouldn't have minded seeing Kylan Granson with a tight end screen once in a while. That would have been something that would have kind of got people off of that situation. But the play calling earlier in the season to try to adjust what the defense was doing to us just was a disappointment to me.
Yeah, and to add to that, it seemed like the Colts, the coaching staff, just didn't get a good, true evaluation of this team during training camp. It just seemed like they didn't foresee the offensive line performing this poorly, which, we were there for a lot of these camps and stuff, but it's hard to understand what you're getting from these guys, because of the way the rules are all set up. But the thing was, to your point, once the season started and you saw Ryan Kelly and Quenton Nelson, and how many times did we see a free runner in the first 3 or 4 weeks at, Matt Ryan? I felt bad for Matt Ryan for the earlier half of the season because, you just didn't adjust to it. You still wanted him to sit back in the pocket for 3 or 4 seconds when he was only getting a second and a half. You know what I mean? And then
if that.
Yeah, and then the thing was Matt Ryan, we knew coming. Matt Ryan, if that was the case, that was not a feasible situation for him to be in. But to your point, once things started getting better on the protection and stuff, we still just kept running the ball straight up the gut. We still kept, this guy's open and this guy's open. Michael Pittman Jr., triple coverage.
Yeah,
we just kept doing things. And then you add in the turnovers, which I don't know how the coaches could adjust calling to adapt to that. But let's be honest. Well, Matt Ryan had like 15 or 16 fumbles, but only 3 of them were. Could you imagine how bad if just half of those would have been actual turnovers? The coaching staff just did not seem to understand what they were getting from this team week to week after the season started, when you started seeing live bullets. And there wasn't a lot of adaptation. What was it? 4 weeks in or so, they started moving some linemen around, but they weren't taking the guys out where they were just shuffling the same 5. And it was like, I remember watching Matt Pryor going, no, he's not left tackle. No. And then you put him over at right tackle. You're like, okay, I understand, but nope, that's not working. Nope. And then you sit there, you put him at guard. It's like, for the love of God, just take this man off the field. I get it. You paid him a bunch of money and you're not going to get your money's worth out of him, because that whoever's back there, whether any one of the 3, they were under duress early and often. We just never seemed to adjust to what we were getting.
Biggest surprise, Gus Bradley.
Yes, sir.
I'm going to drop his name in the hat right here. Gus Bradley was a huge surprise this year. I looked at him and saw him, and I was like, well, there's pluses, there's negatives. There's, he gives and takes here. He might add a little bit of pass rush, but then he's going to give up on the ground game. No. Mm-mm. This dude took our defense and made them super. A lot of you are going to say, super? They gave up 33 points versus Dallas and 33 points, given up versus the Vikings. That's 2 games. 2 games. The rest of the season, they were freaking locked down. Oh my goodness. And every team has, bad moments occasionally. But for the most part, This team was top 5 in sacks this year. All right. We haven't seen that since the Freeney Mathis days. That's amazing. All right. And we were tops on for, top 5 and yards allowed per rush for the majority of the season, which is impressive as well. And I think that what Gus Bradley was able to do with this defense coming in, he took a lot of unknown names, guys that weren't on this team last year, right? There was quite a few of them, and they came in and performed at a very high level. It was his coaching, his style, his scheme that allowed Grover Stewart, who was a surprise this year, to absolutely take over games at times, where it's just snap after snap after snap. Grover Stewart's in the backfield making plays, It's a lot to do with Gus Bradley, and he was my biggest coaching surprise this season.
See, mine's close to that, but it's a little more specific, and that was Coach Ollie. Okay, mm-hmm. I love the way Coach Bradley was. He was flexible. He was more open to. Okay, I mean, we all know he was probably one of the only coaches that was going to blitz less than Eberflus if he had his own way, But yet, with what the production we got, we saw Gus adjusting and allowing more blitzes and stuff. Not a ton. I mean, but you got to go with what you know. But at least he was more open to it. And I want to double down on this run stopping that these guys did. Ollie and what he provided. I mean, Defoe has been Defoe since he got here. But what he provided and allowed Grover to do, and the way he freed up, for the edge guys and stuff, I just absolutely – he's the defense. I would like to keep this defense and just add to it. You know what I mean? But I understand new coach. You never know where. But I'll tell you right now, Coach Ollie and the juice that defensive front brought, and it took him. Sorry, guys, I'm fighting burps here. But the thing that he fought was, keeping this pass rush aggressive, but yet not giving up the run game. And that was my first, second, and third concern with this defense was just, I hate watching football when your defense can't stop a run. You know what I mean? I get it. You're going to get torched on occasional plays, but I just don't want to be that defense that's the bottom level of run stopping, because if you guys know, we played against Derrick Henry for ever, it seems like. We had JT. How demoralizing it can be when you can just pound the rock up the gut over and over. And Grover and Defoe and Dio Adangbo, these guys sat there, and Tyquan Lewis, they sat there and was like, no, not on my watch. And Coach Ollie just was, to me, he was the unknown factor. I mean, we had an idea of what we were going to get with the Gus Bradley defense, but Coach Ollie, you heard about how he wanted to play with, and you watched it. I mean, I don't even know if Defoe or Grover even have any hair left. They were always playing with their hair on fire. I mean, these guys were just awesome all year. I mean, all year.
Here's a stat for you that might surprise you that I found out earlier today. The Colts had more tackles for losses than they gave up 10-plus yard runs. Now, that is an impressive-ass stat.
Yes,
all
sir.
Right.
Yeah, that TFL was one of the saving graces for this defense for sure this year.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Coach Ollie.
Well, it wasn't just Ollie.
I know.
The secondary did a hell of a job in the TFLs as well. I mean, again, like I hate to push another video that I just put out earlier, but that highlight film of Rodney McLeod. Mm-hmm. He was in that backfield a ton this past year, making blow-ups behind the line of scrimmage.
Didn't he actually have the most tackles and the most tackles for loss that he's had in his career, Rodney McLeod?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was thinking that was, and which I get it. He's in the box, but there again, that's Gus Bradley. He sees, a need and he plugs a veteran in.
But on top of that, it wasn't just that. I mean, it's not like he only did that, and that's the only thing he excelled at. Mm-hmm. He was second on the team in pass defenses, mm-hmm. Right behind Stephon. So that's a big plus too, So absolutely. Speed, what's up? Yes, you missed the 35 minutes.
Yeah, 35 minutes.
We done went through the majority of the names that were surprises and disappointments. You're feel free to go back and look at it though. You got another name you want to bring up?
Well, let's see. We've talked a lot about, the defense, but I got to mention the linebacking room just as a whole. Bobby Okereke, Zaire Franklin, EJ Speed, even JoJo Doman whenever necessary. I mean, these guys brought on a new scheme that put a ton of new wrinkles to or new responsibilities to them and how they played on the field. And guys, I'll tell you right now, Bobby Okereke, if I know a lot of us would like to see him come back, but I don't see how it's possible because he played himself out of the realm of Colts being able to afford him. You know what I mean? You sit there and you look at Isaiah Franklin. Oh, he didn't do nothing. He just set a franchise record in tackles. You know what I mean? And this is a guy that coming into this year was, quote, the special teams guy. He was the special team captain, And he's like, no, I'm just special. You know what I mean? He just came out and said, I'm just special. And he really led this room whenever they went through a massive loss. I mean, let's remember how important, Shaquille Leonard was to this defense in 2021. And you lose that for basically the whole year. I get he was there intermittently, but basically you lost him for the whole year. And Zaire just said, there's a massive hole. I'm going to step in and fill that void. Which Bobby helped out with that. But I mean, these two especially I never saw a game where it was like, the first couple of weeks I was like, man, I'm not sure and everything. But after you started seeing these guys about week 2, week 3, start figuring it out. Like I said, about the same time, Rodney McLeod and Rodney Thomas, shored up things in that secondary a little bit, gave these guys time to do their job at a higher level. I mean, man, these were just some dudes this year. And I'll tell you right now, they really, for me, was one of the consistently positives or things to be happy about.
Biggest surprise on the offense. Parris Campbell was healthy the entire freaking year. All right, come on now. That's got to be the biggest surprise of every Colt fan out there, right?
I know it was mine because I've been praying for about 4 years.
But still didn't expect it because he ain't been able to.
I know, God and Parris both came through this year in big way because not only did he stay healthy, but he was very productive at his role. And let's not forget, the first 4 or 5 games, it was like, where's Parris Campbell? Why he's open, but he's not getting done. The O-line ruining another QB.
That was his biggest disappointment, his biggest surprise. That is great. I wrote it before you said it, laugh out loud. I didn't see it. It didn't pop up until after I said it for me, though. So,
but yeah, Parris Campbell, like I said, Parris Campbell, it's not a surprise when you look at his abilities and stuff, but when you look at his history, that was what made it such a surprise because you just almost felt going into this year. I even said this year, I wasn't even going to say if I was like, no, when Parris does it, because it had to be this year. If he wanted to continue in this league, I honestly believe if
not just the team, the league.
Yeah, if he did not produce to the level that he did this year, I mean, I don't know that he could have gotten back. And now it's like we're wondering, can we afford Parris Campbell? Is there going to be some team do what like the Jaguars did last year, just throw a buttload of money at Parris just off of 1 year of production? And unfortunately, the Colts aren't in a financial position to get into a lot of bidding wars this year upcoming.
So I think that's going to do it. I think for the most part, there was pretty good overall. I think defensively we played fantastic. It was by far the biggest surprise was our defense, and the biggest disappointment by far was our offense. I can't really say that Jonathan Taylor was a disappointment because he got injured and was dealing with the injury for the majority of the season. So I understand, that situation. Still performed decent, even with the ankle injury, until obviously he ended up going on IR. Trading Hines was a surprise. I will say that.
Yeah.
Bit of a disappointment at first. And then the last 2 games from what we saw from the running back we got from him, I was like, well, maybe. We'll see. Zach Moss, he got some power to him, right?
Yeah, that running back room with JT going down, that running back room did still find their production, find their, with Zach Moss and Dion, you know what I mean?
Yeah, Dion was a big surprise to me.
And I do want to mention this kid because I get it. He didn't play a single snap this year, but I'm afraid if we don't talk about him from time to time that we're all going to forget him. But I'll tell you right now, going to training camp, as you guys know we did, Andrew Ogletree was such a just, holy cow, is this guy a dude? Is this guy going to come out his rookie year? Okay. And I mean, do you guys remember that? Do you remember where Andrew Ogletree, it was like, okay.
I don't like bringing it up.
Well, I just don't want people to forget, because I'll tell you right now, you look at what we got coming in next year. We got a healthy Ogletree, a healthy Jelani Woods, and a healthy Colin Granson. And then whatever happens with Mo Alley, if we keep him, we don't. But you look at just those three, three-year and all 2-year experience going into next year. I'm telling you right now, not to mention the size and just the physical abilities, but the way these guys really just hit the ground running. You know what I mean? Just really hit the ground running. And we saw in Kylan improvement. We saw over the year progression of Jelani Woods. And then with Ogletree, I remember watching that interview where you interviewed Jelani and was asking about Ogletree, and he was like, "Oh, that's my dog." I mean, he's the guy that, I mean, and the thing is as close as these guys were, they were still roommates and stuff. As close as these guys were, I have to imagine that Ogletree is probably, he's probably sitting there and taking notes and just really, I'm not saying it's the same as being on the field, but I do think that he was more engaged in what a lot of rookie athletes that had gone through his journey and had the injury and stuff. I felt like he was more engaged than what you might get. So I'm telling you right now, guys, keep your eye out for Ogletree next year coming into this thing. I think that for me, he might be that glue guy. He might be that Jack Doyle on the tight end room. He can make catches. He can move people with his blocks. And his energy and just his outlook on things, super, super hyped. Only thing is Lawrence, we can't let you interview him, my guy. Maybe towards the end of the season.
I honestly don't. I don't think that I jinxed that, obviously, because I don't believe in that stuff. But a lot of people do. Just like, you can't interview anybody anymore. Whatever. Okay. In person at that, standing there in person, dude. I thought he was going to be the biggest, the big next thing, for the Colts. From what we saw in training camp, he was just phenomenal. Guys, I think I'm going to do another live stream tomorrow. So keep your eyes open for notifications. We'll probably do it about the same time. We'll probably be talking a little bit about the playoffs come Sunday.
Playoffs? I can't even hear that word anymore without Jim Moore popping in my head. Bing.
We'll talk about the championship games and what these championship games mean to the Colts. Do they really mean anything for the Colts? Oh, there's a lot of different things you could look at and go, there's implications there. Mm-hmm. All right. I mean, I'm just going to say this outright, straight up. If San Francisco wins the Super Bowl, that's going to flip the NFL on its head, because it's always been about the big top dog quarterback. You got to have one to win a Super Bowl, right? We'll see. So there's only one. It's all young guys too. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see what's going on. And obviously, to me, the championship games are exciting because, it's exciting and upsetting at the same time, because that, NFL season's coming to an end. I know a lot of Colts fans feel like that it's already over, but it's not. There's still, 3 games left to go. And then we got, a little bit of other stuff that we can talk about. Don't forget, I will be doing another Colts player season highlight film room soon. Drop in the comments in this video, after this is over with, in the comment section, which player you would like me to do a highlight film room on that played this past season for the Colts. and we'll see where that goes from. But any final words?
Yeah, Chris Ballard, take good notes. Take good notes over these next couple games. You know what I mean? Because you sit there and you look at the quarterbacks that are in the draft, and you look at some of these quarterbacks that are playing in these playoffs, and you see different styles. You see the running quarterback with Jalen Hurts. You know, you see the more pocket passer but can extend plays, and Patrick Mahomes. So take good notes and figure out what your flavor is with whoever you choose as head coach.
Absolutely. And until next time, I'm Lawrence Owen. That is Loyalist. And as usual, I want you to have a good one.
Just because a player's not a household name doesn't mean we can't make him a household name.
Yeah, I know the coaching is out there. I know there's a lot of stuff going on about the coaches. I just want to coach. I don't care who the coach is. They better bring in a hell of a staff, though. All right? That's all I got to say. I need a whole different look on the offense. I want an offensive staff. Bring it. That's what I want to see. Have a good one.